What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. So the college football playoff semifinals are over. So let's go ahead and break down the key aspects of each game. This video will be focusing specifically on the Cotton Bowl matchup between Alabama and Cincinnati. So for me, the first big takeaway from this game was just the line of scrimmage. I mean, I focused on it in my preview because I didn't think Cincinnati would be able to hold up very well against Alabama in the trenches, and that really proved to be true here. Now, my preview, I had this game as a 38-21 Alabama win, so I was a little bit off. I thought it would be a little bit higher scoring. I particularly thought Cincinnati would be more effective on offense than they were, but one of my biggest concerns was already going into the game, see if Cincinnati can hold up in the line of scrimmage, and I figured that Alabama would come out. And on their first drive in particular, I said that they would come out and they would try to establish the run and test Cincinnati up front early on. And that's exactly what they did. Now, where I got that wrong was I thought Cincinnati would do a little bit better in run defense than they actually did. I also thought Alabama would kind of not go away from the run, but, they wouldn't be as run heavy as they ended up being in this game. I thought there'd be a lot more of the passing game seen from Alabama than we ended up seeing. They really didn't throw the ball very much, and they didn't really seem to make it a big focus to throw the ball all that frequently, and they didn't really need to because they were running the ball like crazy. And, I thought Bryce Young would do a little bit more than he did because I thought they were going to throw the ball more. And it's not even really that Bryce Young had a bad game. For his standards, it wasn't a great game by any means, but I think it was really more he didn't get the opportunities that he would normally get in a traditional game for them. They get a lot more run heavy, and Cincinnati is one of the better pass defenses that they've seen so far. So I think that also sort of weighed in to that. And so, yeah, with me expecting them to get to 38, I thought a lot of that would be due to Bryce Young and them throwing the ball more, which just naturally lends itself to a higher scoring game. I figured they'd be about as effective as they were. I mean, they got to 27. They could have got to a lot more if they really wanted to. But they just kind of ran the clock out and ran the ball. And for me, this should have been pretty obvious, honestly, because if you look at Alabama against other 3-3-5 defenses this year, like Ole Miss and Arkansas, they have run the ball all over them, particularly the Ole Miss game. And then you look at Cincinnati, and they honestly don't match up with Alabama even as well as those teams did up front specifically. And so it should have been pretty obvious that they were going to be able to run the ball with pretty ridiculous effectiveness, especially if you also look at Brian Robinson was going to be fully healthy coming out. And Bama has done this before. Once they realize that they can run the ball on you, and especially if they realize that they can both run the ball on you and their defense can prevent you from scoring high points, they will just grind the ball out and prevent you from scoring. Low score game, take it with a nice 2-3 score win, and that's exactly what they did in this one. I mean, Bama ran for over 300 yards and 6.4 yards per carry. Basically makes it impossible to beat them unless your offense is having an outstanding night, and Cincinnati's absolutely didn't. They had anything but that. On the other side of the ball, the Cincy could not move the ball with any effectiveness because of their inability to win the line of scrimmage still. They only ran for 74 yards, averaging 3 yards per carry. Now, Jerome Ford did average over 5 yards per carry, but he was kind of taken out of the game. He only went for 77 yards by himself. I think the rest of the team actually had negative rushing yards. But yeah, they ran the ball decently effective with Jerome Ford, but not enough to really build the offense around it, and not enough to get Alabama to cheat up in the run game on them. And that really put Desmond Ridder in some bad situations. It got him behind the sticks a lot. They couldn't deal with Alabama's pass rush a lot because of this, because they couldn't get the run game established. Bama was put into some situations where they could pin their ears back. It was pretty obvious passing downs, and that was a large reason why Bama was able to rack up 6 sacks and 8 tackles for a loss. And Will Anderson in particular was living in the Cincinnati backfield. He completely wrecked the game basically by himself. And that's another thing I was actually correct about in my preview of the many things I actually got wrong, but I did get this one correct, is that Will Anderson had the immense potential to be a complete game wrecker, and he was in this game. They had no answer for him. They couldn't block him. He was racking up multiple sacks, multiple tackles for a loss. Even the ones he wasn't getting, he was drawing so much attention that other guys like DJ Dale were coming through. It was absolute domination from Alabama on the line of scrimmage. And that line of scrimmage dominance really controls the game because it gives Alabama pretty consistent first down success on offense. And when you have consistent first down success, you're able to be balanced. You're able to dictate to the defense if you want to run, if you want to pass. You're able to keep them off balance, keeps you on schedule offensively, while Cincinnati had frequent issues with getting behind schedule, getting into third and longs, obvious passing downs, and it allows Alabama to really come after the quarterback. And you add that on top of Cincinnati already struggling to block them even when it's not an obvious passing down. And it's just a recipe for disaster. I mean, Alabama being able to dictate things, equally effective run and pass, to be honest. More so run than pass, but their passing game was still very effective when it needed to be. Just complete dominance on the line of scrimmage from Alabama. Cincinnati also, they weren't deep enough on the fronts, nor were they just talented enough or even big enough to match up with the line of scrimmage. That completely determined the outcome of this game, especially as the game wore on. You just knew that Alabama's defense could keep rolling and rolling and rolling and rolling guys in, and Cincinnati couldn't do the same thing. It became very apparent early on that Alabama was going to completely dominate the line of scrimmage and because of that dominate the game. Another takeaway I had from this game was that Desmond Ridder was simply not good enough. I said in my preview video, Desmond Ridder needed to have a Deshaun Watson type performance for Cincinnati to have a good hope of winning, and he was anything but that. He was 17 of 32, 144 yards, no touchdowns, no picks, averaged just 4.5 yards per attempt, which is abysmal in a game of this magnitude when you're a projected first-round pick at quarterback and you carry your team's hope on your back. You really have to do better than that. He finished with negative rushing yards, mainly due to the 6 sacks that he took, but even if you take those away, he was basically a non-factor in the run game, and he really needed to be to help establish that run game and help keep Alabama honest. You know, if you can make them commit numbers to the run game, it would have given Cincinnati a chance to stretch the field more. But Bama never respected Cincinnati's ability to threaten them downfield. They never really respected their ability to run the ball on them either. So they were able to kind of sit in their base defense and do what they wanted for the most part. Cincinnati didn't make it hard on them in either passing game or running game offensively. And he wasn't a game breaker, and he really needed to be. I mean, he didn't throw any interceptions, but he also didn't score a touchdown the entire game. Like I said, he never threatened Alabama down the field with his passing game. His performance was just not anywhere near good enough to win this game, and that's especially annoying if you're a Cincinnati fan, because the Cincinnati defense, while they did terrible in run defense, their pass defense was actually very good. They did enough to keep them in this game, and it put them in a position where if the offense gives you anything, just gives you something, this can be a really close game because all of a sudden, instead of going 3 and out, putting your defense right back on the field multiple times, you're driving down the field, you're getting a field goal, you're getting a touchdown. And that really, not only does it give your defense rest, it buys your defense time, and it can put Alabama in a position where maybe they feel the need to pass more, and that's what Cincinnati was doing better at defending. But instead, they didn't get any of that. They got a lot of 3 and outs, a lot of quick drives that ended in nothing. When they got into the red zone, they had almost no effectiveness. The defense gave them great field position on multiple occasions, and Cincinnati did nothing with it. Honestly, offense just completely let them down, and to me, that falls squarely on Desmond Ridder's shoulders. He is the first-round quarterback. He is the quarterback of the team. It's his responsibility at the end of the day, and he did not show up. And he just kept the Cincinnati defense on the field way, way too much, considering what they were asking of them, what they were asking the defense to do to keep them in this game. It was really a shame for them because it really wasted a good performance from their secondary because Desmond Ridder just simply was not good enough. For me, the third big takeaway from this game was that Cincinnati's pass defense played outstanding. I was just talking about this a little bit in the Ridder point, but they were able to get some pressure on Bryce Young. They got 2 sacks, got a couple hurries, which is largely responsible for that one interception that he threw. And getting him to throw an interception is really, really rare if you look at his numbers this year. I think he only had 4 coming into that game. Now I think he has 5. But, you know, they got pretty decent pressure on him, got better pressure than Georgia did, to be honest. And then their corners and safeties held up very well down the field for the majority of the game. They gave up the one deep pass to Ja'Cory Brooks, but, I mean, overall, considering who they were up against. They held Bryce Young in check. They didn't allow Jameson Williams to be a game wrecker. He had a couple catches, but nothing over the top, really. I think his biggest play was like 18 yards on a run play, really. So they held the pass game in check. They only gave up one explosive, held Jameson Williams in check, got some good pressure on Bryce Young, forced a turnover like that. And like I said, if on the Desmond Ridder point, if they could get some help from their offense and if they had just slightly better run defense, they could have really made this a much more competitive game. And now you can also attribute some of this to Alabama not trying to throw the ball very much because they were just devastating them in the run game. And I think there's some truth to that. I mean, it is you have to acknowledge that Alabama wasn't really trying to stretch the field on them all too much, and they weren't just trying to throw the ball a whole lot. And it maybe if they did try to throw the ball, then they would have torched the Cincinnati secondary. But we don't know that. We don't know if they would have been able to or not. And Cincinnati still, from what we did see, Cincinnati performed very well in pass defense. Like I said, good coverage downfield. They got a turnover with it. They got good pressure on Bryce Young. Honestly, I just hate to see that good of a performance from the Cincinnati pass defense be wasted because the rest of the team didn't really show up and help them. They played well in special teams as a whole too, but no help from the offense, and their run defense just wasn't good enough to get the job done. But I do think it should be pointed out Cincinnati had a very good pass defense game, and I think they should get credit for that. And overall, my final big takeaway here is just Cincinnati did truly belong, and I feel like there's a lot more people going out there saying that Cincinnati truly belonged than people who are disagreeing with that. There's a lot of people going out there sort of like berating people for saying Cincinnati didn't belong, but there's really not that many people actually saying Cincinnati didn't belong. So I don't want to pile onto that too much, but they really did belong. Despite this game never really being in doubt from the first drive. Alabama scored enough points in their first drive to win the game. But Cincinnati played well. Like I said, their pass defense showed up well. They forced a turnover. They had some good sacks. Their offense just didn't do enough, and they couldn't win the line of scrimmage. It was way too big of a mismatch there. Part of that is just due to personnel. Another part of that, I think, is due to scheme with the 3-3-5 defense. Bama has kind of shown that to be the Achilles heel of that defense is when you really want to run down their throat, they don't have much of an answer for you. Georgia did the same thing when they played Arkansas, who also runs 3-3-5. They ran all up and down them. So, just an interesting little schematic note there, I guess. But like I said, Cincinnati definitely belongs. I don't think anybody should be the takeaway from this game that the group of five should never compete. Alabama would have beat basically any other team you would have put in the slot by this much as well. They would have beat Notre Dame. Cincinnati was clearly a better team than Notre Dame this year. They would have beat Baylor, although that may have been a better game. We don't know. The point is, Cincinnati was undefeated. They were deserving. There wasn't another Power 5 team that you could really make a good argument for over them. And even though they didn't have the best performance, particularly offensively, I don't think that would really be a good justification for trying to keep the group of five out in the future. Anyway, with all that being said, if you have made it this far in the video, be sure to just leave a like on the video. It helps the channel out a lot. It helps it grow. Also, comment down below your thoughts on this game. Each team as a whole, their seasons, did Cincinnati belong, etc. Anything you think about this content as a whole. And yeah, also subscribe to the channel for more college football content like this in the future, because I will continue to be uploading college football content pretty frequently. But with all that being said, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all next time.